Actually, I don't know. He is back from Europe, but
Oh, he's your folks, man, I was talking about.
Rich, no, he'll be joining on Zoom. And in person, unfortunately, he took a fall yesterday, banged himself up pretty good.
Thank you.
Was he playing pickleball?
Yeah, no, I haven't gotten him out on the court yet.
What's he getting at? What is the place?
No, I think it was, I wasn't exactly clear because he was talking to me this morning. I think it was at his lunch yesterday when he was meeting with someone from the South County, actually.
So I'm retired from that.
But yeah, he said it was quite a bit of pain and he was going on.
I'm actually.
So yes, my other boss, Tom Phillippe, is back in town after 2.5 weeks of vacation, and actually, I don't know if he's here or not. He wasn't in the office when I came over.
And.
I've hardly gotten to see him.
Hello, how are you? I'm doing great.
I
can see the devil.
Speak to
There
the
you go.
devil for space.
Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
What's the show?
I
don't. I said you were going to talk to us. I just came to the office, sorry.
Oh, boy. Just so you know.
Hi, Ann. Meet again, good. I was admiring the can have a little insight while I grab some tacos real quick.
Yeah, so nice.
Okay.
Oh,
Because I didn't hardly burn
Like
it.
that, it's been fun. Occupied by.
I was telling someone,
Yes,
like,
yes.
oh,
Trying not to.
man. It was 4 days in a row. I was on 5 a.m. alarm.
Rich.
So
No, he got injured. Had a bad fall and we're not sure how bad.
It sounded like he was in quite a bit of pain. He says he'll.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. See, we still have some people coming in online. I'd like to say welcome to the DIF update meeting number 4. And today we've got a large agenda to go through. Some significant updates I want to provide you at the outset. So we'll wait a couple more minutes as more people come online and then we'll start going through the agenda.
Right. What's happening over at Caltech?
Okay.
All right. Yeah. What they-
I believe they're using it as a staging area for some of the road work.
Staging
Yeah,
area.
just a little bit of the overflow parking.
Awesome. Overflow that corner. How long is it gonna be an overflow location?
We can talk after.
Oh, that bad.
That's our plans.
Summertime construction. season. But on the good side, look at the track. Well, the track looks like brand new. And good amount of money, a refreshing the track. It looks like it was just cranked out yesterday. And, the rubberized. Right. So.
Councilor Wiley was trying to join the meeting. I forwarded her the meeting, but she says the Zoom link is not working for her. Rather, I think I sent her stays, but now I'm questioning myself. People are getting into the space, so I know the space is quiet. There's 20 people. Again, I'll tell her to ask her to try again, because she said maybe that's full of space. Try that. I'll get back to her.
You're emailing it.
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me in there?
We got you, Rich.
Good. Can you see me? Yeah, there I am. All right, well, if I can have a second here. For everybody there that knows me, I apologize, I'm not there today. I had a pretty bad accident yesterday, and my whole left side is fouled up. So if you hear me breathing hard or looking funny, that's what it is. I just got back from the doctor and x-rays and all that stuff, but I'm here.
All right, Rich. I hope you get better soon.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get better, hell. Just another rough card to deal with.
See you next time.
Let me get my glass. Is everybody on board?
Everybody's on board. All right, well, we're gonna get going. It's 1:05.
If I can, before you start, I want to say something. And that is I've been working a little bit with Brian McLean, and I want to tell everybody he's working his tail off trying to help us make this work. And I really appreciate that. So there you go, Payman. I'm saying something nice. But at the same time, I would also like
It's
to
not even
say,
eating right.
you might want to record that and chalk it up. But at the same time, I would like to remind everybody, what is the goal? I know that everybody in every department needs to have money to do what they need to do. I understand that. Everybody does. But the goal is to work it out to where we can build the product that you guys want us to build, that the city wants us to build, so we can build the product and not create an issue to where we stop building. So we're all sort of, that's the goal, unless I'm wrong. If I'm wrong and it's different, I need to know that, and I think all of us do. So that's sort of my opening speech, and now I'll shut up and let everybody else go.
Okay, thank you, Rich. All right, we're gonna get it going. Why don't we go through the agenda real quick? Next slide, please. Okay, status update. That's really what this first section's all about. I know we've heard a lot, last month about making sure that we're being very clear and open and transparent, and more importantly, from the development community, you have wanted to hear about what's transpired. Are you listening to us, et cetera? And so I'm going to address that directly with this status update. Talk about the FAQs, a little bit of update on the TIF, and we'll talk about the updated fee matrix, project schedule for the TIF fee project. Then we'll get into a little bit of the scheduling and logistics for the TIF CFD. And then finally, we'll hand it over to Nemo within the Parks and Recreation Department, who will take on the meat of this particular meeting related to the Parks and Rec TIF. Next slide. So over the last month, there's been quite a bit of the FAQs that staff has produced. Hopefully you've had a chance to review at least some of these. For the sake of clarity, we've numbered all of them and posted them online in these numbers. And they range from fair share calculation and soft costs all the way up to number 19, which was a pretty lengthy response to Vance's questions. All good questions, and we provided you some good answers. And then on the July 7th and 8th, there was a couple additional updates, a finalized update of the TIF matrix, and we'll go through that today, as well as some park maintenance, park cost matrix, which come out of the Parks and Recreation Department. Next slide. Just for the sake of housekeeping, if anybody is unawares, there is a website on the city's website on the community development page. If you click under fees and forms and fees, you'll see a very large tile there for the diff update project. You click on that and you'll come to the entire diff page, and all of those FAQs are there, as well as the basic Nexus Study documents and all the supporting details. So if you haven't visited it, that's a great place, good resource for obtaining the information related to this project. Next slide. I'm going to dive into the TIF. So this is the Transportation Improvement Fee. At the last meeting, there was some questions or concerns related to the projects. Where was the unit cost derived from what projects? Were they local or not? To this, I want to say most projects are local. I wanted to be open with you in terms of what those projects were. So here they are, Judson Parkway Phase 2 project. For the TIF, a tremendous amount of the diff Nexus study cost, unit cost calculations come from that project, as well as the 2025 AC repair project and the 2025 slurry seal project. And you can see some of the details there on the Judson Parkway project, from traffic signal modification to concrete, curb and gutter, et cetera. Next slide. This is the big piece right here. There's been the three projects that Tom and Rich have been very vocal about, and staff had taken that under advisement seriously. To that end, California Drive Overcrossing, Vaca Valley Extension, Midway Road widening. So over the last month or so, staff has stepped back from these projects and taken a look at exactly what can we do related to the TIF in terms of the overall TIF fees. So what we've gone through is restructured the California Drive Overcrossing and the Vaca Valley Extension projects. The scope of work has been redone so that we can lower that exposure to the dip. So what we've done on both of those projects is scoped it to run some additional traffic modeling, evaluate the impacts of not doing the project, evaluate alternatives, perform cost benefit analysis, and conduct some preliminary engineering work. For both of those projects, you can see on the slide here, we go from what's currently in the diff, approximately $16 million down to $2.5 million. So a $13.5 million reduction. Also lowers the EDU down $684. That's on the California Drive Overcrossing. On Vaca Valley, very similar. Current exposure is $13.4 million. The reworking of that scope of work brings it down to $2.5 million. It's a reduction of almost $11 million. That's $550 in EDU reduction. And finally, on Midway Road widening, this particular one, the scope of work that's in the 22 diff for this project right now is essentially a 4-lane with separated sidewalks. What we're looking at doing is doing a 2-lane with a center turn lane, which reduces the exposure to the diff from $60.7 million to $45.6 million. It's a $15 million reduction for a $762 per EDU reduction. That's in total $39.6 million less exposure to the TIF, bringing down the total for the transportation diff amount. So we go to the next slide. This is a basis for all of the diff fees. So this is the updated matrix. Just so we stay on the transportation fees, right about in the middle of the matrix. You see the current fee is $16,020. The April 25 draft was $27,290. And with that $39 million reduction in the TIF, it comes down to a proposed $25 million, or excuse me, $25 million, $25,000 per EDU cost. Again, those three elements that we've talked about on California Drive, Vaca Valley Extension, and Midway Road widening, those are options that we'll be bringing to the city council. And you can see the rest of the various land use TIF category, the fees that are right now updated again at the end of June. $98,475, which was in the April 25 TIF, reduced down to $92,535. There's also, I want to make sure that you're fully aware. Because I've been hoping to be sure to make sure there was clarity in this and that we're being fully respectful of what we're hearing from you. But staff is going to be bringing to city council, not just those options for those particular transportation projects, but there will be other options that will be offered to city council for their consideration, including removal of projects entirely from the diff, removal of projects from this particular diff update so that it would be in this particular diff update. And then also a myriad of options related to phasing those projects in over the various years of this particular diff cycle. So plenty of options there that county staff will be providing recommendations to city council at some point in the future related to consideration of what to do about the diff update. Next slide. Project schedule. This goes to Mr. Alexander. Rich and I met last Thursday. He's graciously offered to sit down with city staff to go over some of the developer financials. I'm taking him up on that offer, and Debbie from my office is working to organize that. So big shout out, Rich. I appreciate that. Looking forward to that meeting.
And I will call you back. I had a little problem, but I will call you back and set that meeting 22nd, 23rd.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Moving on, August 12th.
And also you have there, Brad, I think Brad's in the room. I can't see with Meritage, and he will be joining us.
Okay, thanks, Rich.
Okay.
On August 12th, we will be going through a presentation to City Council. This will be the second part of our educational series. It will be the Diff 102. Get into some of the calculations so that council can understand how those figures are derived.
And that, there's still not any kind of action item. This is still,
Just an informational item. Check everyone there. On August 25th, we'll hold the fifth public outreach meeting with the public and yourselves. That'll be 10 to noon. And then on the council meeting for the DIF CFD policy discussion, going through a little bit of reorganization in terms of the city council date on that. So DBD could be September, October. As soon as we get that nailed down, we'll obviously reach out to everyone so that you're fully aware of that particular meeting. I had a conversation with the mayor by email this morning related to one of the items that Tom and Rich that you had brought up a couple times in the last few meetings about time at the podium. And the mayor has graciously approved the extension of the time for the developers at the podium. So logistics on that, whether that is a developer spokesman or whether it's all of the developers, we'll work out those logistics. Bottom line is you'll be getting extended time at the podium. And then finally, the very last bullet on the page here, this is essentially the wrap up of all of this work to be council's consideration of what to do about it. The staff proposing recommendations for staff for council consideration. Don't quite yet know what that time frame is. Obviously, after the policy discussion, it could be October, November. Todd, I understand you've got a question.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for the review so far. I'm just going to add that for the meeting on the 12th, it might be helpful to include additional fee information such as fees paid to the school district, the county public facilities fees. In our case, for our work east of Leisure Town, we have SID detachment fees and water annexation fees, there's building permit fees. So more of a larger comprehensive look at your overall number plus what's not showing up on just the DIF. What might be helpful for council to consider.
That's great. Actually, it's a good segue. Thank you, Todd. We are actually in the process right now with Typheon for the EPS. We are developing essentially it's a bar chart that shows City of Vacaville along with several other municipalities.
And so, sorry, this is Greg Brun. Todd, did I miss, did you say school impact fees as well?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I missed it.
So just clarifying here, we are working on a bar chart right now that we will present to council for their review during that policy discussion, again, that future policy discussion. That lists the city of Vacaville's diff fee current and proposed, along with several other municipalities. Those fees will also include not just the city of Vacaville's fees, but also the county and the school district fees. And we'll be presenting that again for council's consideration to your point, Todd, so that there's a better understanding of the totality of those fees.
Thank you. Sorry if I jumped the gun.
No, that's a good question. I appreciate it. And so if there's 9 questions on this update portion of the meeting, hearing any? Seeing any? Yes. Good. And I'm going to turn it over to Nemo who will go through the Parks and Recreation bid. Pull that up right now.
Thanks, Brian. Got a slideshow that I'm gonna wait for. I'm actually gonna tag team with Gwen on this. There are things that I facilitated, discussions that I had with some peer agencies, so I'll go over kind of the things that are within my purview, and then I'll turn it over to Gwen, and then we'll end on a slide that I can talk about. So again, my name is Nemo. I'm a park planner with the Parks and Rec Department, filling in for Bruce, our director, who couldn't make it today. Wanted to start off with the policy documents that guide a lot of the development for our department, which are the parks element of the general plan, along with the Park and Rec Master Plan. And these documents, among other things, include information on our level of service and our park standards, which you can see up there. We've got 3 park categories: neighborhood, community, and regional park, but only 2 of those collect for land acquisition. So while our LOS is 4.5 acres per 1,000 residents, collect diff on 3.5 acres. Next slide. So as part of this, these last few weeks, we've had an opportunity to reach out to some of our peer agencies to just see where Vacaville falls in compared to a lot of the other cities in our region. And I wanted to go over just a couple of pieces of information that are up on the slide. First being our LOS and where we fall in with other peer agencies. So we're kind of in the middle. Most of them are 5 or 4.5. And again, that includes the 3 park categories: 1.8 acres per 1,000 residents for neighborhood park, 1.7 for community, and 1 for regional parks. If we compare the land acquisition component, you'll see that we're at the bottom of the list compared to all 13 agencies that are on the list. So if all other variables are equal and a developer approaches any of the cities on the list, they have a greater park obligation for all these other agencies than they do for the city of Vacaville. And then separate from that, I wanted to highlight that of the 13 agencies on there, only 2 do not have a Quimby, Vacaville being one of them. So essentially what that means is, I know for the developers and the consultants and some of the city folk, we understand what that is, but in layman terms, Quimby is an ordinance that allows cities to obligate developers to set aside land for park and rec purposes or in lieu fees. And what that means for us is that we don't have a Quimby, so we don't have this separate mechanism. So the way that we collect park land monies is through DIF, whereas all these other agencies, with the exception of West Sacramento, have a separate mechanism. So right off the bat, our DIF is always going to be slightly higher compared to some of the other agencies that we're looking at. Next slide. So, last few weeks, I'm in contact with a lot of the peer agencies and a lot of landscape architecture firms that work with our peer agencies. And one of the things that we wanted to know, we wanted to respond to some of the concerns on some of the information that had been brought to a previous meeting where some of the park projects were not necessarily matching up with what our standards are in terms of size of the park and amenities. And in response to that, I set out a clear criteria that matches the language that's in the Park and Rec Master Plan to these peer agencies. And I said, have you built any parks in the last few years that resemble this description? And so we were provided a good amount of data that we were then able to plug into like a matrix and kind of figure out what the average cost is. And this is actual tangible data. It's not projection. It's not what we think it's going to be, but rather actual parks that have been built in the last few years, along with some estimates for parks that are either bidding or under construction right now. And you'll see that the average is where we kind of rounded down from the average. The actual raw data was posted in the FAQ that Brian was talking about earlier. But we averaged down, and so that's where these 2025 figures are coming from. And you can see the delta from the 22 figures to the 25, and that's what the slide is showing. Next slide. This is kind of where I'm going to wrap up my part of it. The only thing that we wanted to articulate with the soft costs is that they weren't captured in the 2022 diff, and they are now in the 2025. And so that's also making up a good deal of the jump. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gwen.
So the Parks and Rec Master Plan only included park costs. And that's what we had used in the 2022 diff and didn't include the soft costs. Because there was an assumption that the $500,000 was included in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, included the entire cost, both hard costs and soft costs. I will go over the soft costs a little later on in the presentation, but soft costs basically is items like design, environmental, material testing, construction management, inspection, and also construction contingency. So basically, for each of the actual hard costs, we added on 40% for soft costs, because based upon, it was probably Tim Burke and Tracy Rideout did this 2016, 2017. And historically, for public works to produce a project, soft cost is approximately 40% if we actually design the project in-house. Next slide. So this slide basically just combines soft costs and hard costs. In the 2022, the $500,000 for neighborhood and community park, and the cost for regional park was only the actual cost to construct it when you hire a contractor. The 2025 has updated actual construction costs plus 40% for soft costs. Next slide. Okay, so in the 2022 diff, so the Parks and Rec Master Plan has 14 facilities. In the 2022 diff, only 5 facilities were chosen. And the Parks and Rec Master Plan was adopted in 2021. The cost estimates were 2019 or 2020. So basically for the actual hard costs to get from the Parks and Rec Master Plan to today, what we did is we looked at inflation and just grew those numbers for the hard costs. Plus the 2025 included all 14 of those Parks and Rec facilities as opposed to the original 5. Next slide. So once again, soft costs, when they identified the costs in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, it was only identified as actual construction costs, didn't include soft costs. So we actually included soft costs for the 2025, because whenever you either build or renovate a facility, you have to pay for design, you have to pay for construction management, inspection, contingencies, etc. Next slide. Okay, so this slide shows 2022, what was in the Parks and Rec Master Plan for the facilities versus 2025 for each of the facilities. Then the column all the way to the right identifies for the 2025 cost, what is actually put on development. The entire cost to update that facility is not put on development because there's going to be the existing population is going to use it. We can't charge development for the existing population that will be using it. So the population growth is approximately 30%, And so there's 30% obligation of that entire cost that goes to development. 70% is on the city because it's basically a level of service that we have to provide to the rest of the existing population. Next slide. Okay, trail costs. We've gone back and forth. Trail costs multiple times. Sometime when we were doing the 2022 diff, it was probably 2021, Vince had brought up the Steuben's Cold Canyon project. At the time, because we were pretty close to trying to finish up the development impact fee, what we did is we just averaged that cost with the cost that we had, and we just said it was good because there wasn't enough time to work it out. And actually, of the overall cost, the trails cost is a very small portion. So we actually went and got what the project was, and we reached out to the actual agency and said, can you provide a project description, provide what was on bid, what was your estimates, etc. And so basically, it's an erosion control and trail repair. It was managed by the Solano County Water Agency, and it was completed by a nonprofit, the American Conservation Experience, which they call ACE. And ACE is very cost effective because the crews are AmeriCorps crews. They don't have to pay prevailing wage. There's no overhead, profit, or high insurance costs. And there's minimal equipment and supervision expenses. Next slide. So basically what we did is we did some adjustments from that particular project to if we actually had to bid a project. So the first thing we did was the bid came in April of 2020. And so I basically adjusted for 2020, April 2020 to, May of 2025. Then from there, I did adjustments for a private contractor actually doing the work. The inflation was from April of 2020 to May of 2025. I then added in soft costs, and basically the benchmarking for the diff is $1.54 linear foot. There's a write-up on this that goes $1.54, 154. Did I say 154?
You said go.
Oh, sorry, 154.
I know what she meant.
So basically, there's a write-up explaining all the minutiae details for that on the website. Next slide. Okay.
Real quick, Vince, we appreciate you, providing us that kind of information. And hopefully that provides you a little bit of, context, in terms of where we're at. We basically selected your project and went back and did the updating it based on, the factors, inflation, et cetera, what it would cost us to do the projects. I think the big takeaway there is the draft in April came out. It was $225 a linear foot. And it's come down to now $154 a linear foot. So.
Okay. So just to touch upon turnkey parks and soft costs. So if the city of Vacaville is to develop a park that's design, construction, the whole kit and caboodle, we have about a 40%, what we assume 40% for soft costs. If the developer was to design and then construct the actual park, there's a portion of the soft costs that goes back to the developer. So this is assuming the park's going to be $1 million or more. So Public Works for our plan check and inspection, because we still need to do plan check, we still need to do inspection, based upon what we produce of what it costs for us, and it's a sliding scale. It's basically development costs for, if you do plan check for roads, etc., which is published, is about 6.61%, assuming the project is over $1 million. Parks and Rec is looking about trying to figure out how much their actual plan check costs will be. So they're not exactly sure yet, but that's something they're working on. But we anticipate probably about 26% of that 40% will go back to the developer. It's a turnkey park. So you get the cost for the construction and you get approximately 26% of the soft cost back. Next slide.
And that's just because the developers doing
They're doing
that,
the
they're
work.
doing the environmental, the design, the survey and all that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So a question on the fee credit that you might get if the developer were to build it? Would they get the whole amount spent, or would they only get the portion that is the fees that is there? Because there's a neighborhood component and a community component and a regional component. And I've been here long enough to see it done every different way.
It would be specific to whatever the developer is providing. If the developer is providing a neighborhood park, and this is addressed in a slide kind of at the end of our presentation, but the developer provides a turnkey neighborhood park, we would credit them 100% of the hard cost for neighborhood park. We would credit them the 100% of the neighborhood park portion of the land acquisition. And then we would credit them a partial amount of the soft costs that went to Swanberg.
But the fee of, proposed fee of $27,000 is made up of 3 different components.
Yeah, there's, if we could wait like a few minutes, we'll get to a slide where it's got a breakdown of the individual components.
Okay, so just, right, this slide shows the soft costs of what we assume, 2% for environmental clearance, 3% for preliminary engineering, 10% for actual design, various testing, 5%. We have, construction engineering services, which is construction management and inspection, 10%. And then we assume a 10% contingency on construction. That's where our 40% comes from. So, next slide. Okay, I'm just, basically with this slide, what we did was, of the $27,000 for talking on a single family, that's 2,500 square feet. What we did was we identified what the cost would be, and then we provided a pie chart. So it gave you an idea of how much portion each of the fee is going to when you pay that $27,000. So I'm going to turn this over to Nemo. So it's more on this.
Yeah, I'll address Tom's question in a minute, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight with this graphic is, again, theoretically, if the city adopted a Quimby, we could lower the development impact fees by 9%. And that would be a closer comparison to other agencies when we're looking at their diff. But to address the question, so there, you see that the bulk of the fee is made up by the 3 park categories and then the land acquisition for the parks. So over 50% of the parks, over 50% of the park and rec development impact fee is related to parks. I guess remember this sort of pie chart, and if we could turn it to the next slide, one of the things that I wanted to say was that as a department, we want to encourage developers to enter into agreements with our department and with community development to provide turnkey parks. And as I previously stated, we're more than willing to reimburse or credit the developers this fee related to whatever it is that they build with their community. So if you're inclined, if you think that you could do it cheaper and you think that the fee is high, understand that most of the fee will come back to you in this additional agreement. And we are committing, this is a public hearing, you can throw these words back on my plate. And I've had a discussion with my director. He's in agreement that we're more than willing to negotiate with developers to make sure that, we enter into fair agreements with developers. That's where my sort of spiel ends, and I'm happy to take any additional questions.
In the past, the fee breakdown was 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 regional, 1/3 community, 1/3 neighborhood parks. And if a developer built a park, they would get 1/3 the credit, even if they spent $5 million on a park, they'd only get credit for 1/3 of it. Are you saying that the developer, if they built a $5 million park, they would get $5 million worth of credit?
We're going to get into.
You understand the
hypotheticals.
distinction, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I understand. If a developer were to come to the city and propose 10 new homes, we wouldn't obligate them to provide a neighborhood park. We would rather take the in lieu fees and then use those fees to credit a future developer that had an obligation to mitigate for something that is closer to our standards. And so we would credit 100%. And then if there are any other developments that are occurring in the area, we can commit to possibly even allocating some of those funds to credit you to be able to execute on the project. But yeah, how it's been done in the past, beyond the 4 years that I've been here, I can't speak to that.
So we have a councilwoman in the room and I appreciate that. We're going to need, from a developer standpoint, we're going to need council concurrence with this because the last time, and I was involved, that a developer was involved in a fee or in a developer built park was Magnolia Park in Southtown. And I negotiated with Rod Moresco, the public works director at the time, and we got a 100% fee credit. And we had a benefit district out there. The city got that land for nothing and it was all worked out and we had a great deal. And since that time, the city has been adamant about not allowing that. We have 10 acres in the farm project and your predecessor said to us, no, we're not interested in you building that park. We'll build it in 15 to 20 years. That's a quote, a direct quote, 15 to 20 years. Bandon Meadows, there's 6 acres sitting there that the developer has now walked away from that will collect weeds forever. And your fire department is very upset about that because in Bandon Meadows, there's an agreement for the city to build a park based on fee income. It's not happening. You hear a lot of frustration because policies change, but we need council to act and solidify this. I agree 100%. If this happens, I will be thrilled. You understand my position on parks in this community. Nobody wants parks more than I do. Nobody on the planet. But I am so frustrated by the way it's been handled in the past. I can't tell you. I worked out a deal. If Magnolia Park's a good park, I would think. Everybody loves Magnolia Park, and that came about because of negotiations that I had with Rod Moresco. We made it happen. And the developers were happy because it's a sales tool. It's a sales, they want parks built. It's a win-win, a proverbial win-win. So if we can get full 100% credits for parks, you'll get parks built. You will get them built. But we need to make sure that that is not, because honestly, it was in 2004 that I negotiated that Magnolia agreement. And I don't know what happened since, but your predecessor told us, no way, our policy is not to give those credits anymore. Where'd that come from? I don't know.
From a policy perspective, I think when we go to council, we can meet with Aaron's group and talk about how we can codify something so that there's, an understanding that when you are approaching the city, that we are going to operate in good faith with you to make this happen.
There's 10 acres in the farm. They don't know what to do with that land.
I do.
Well, I would, there's this, these comments about, well, there's not enough parkland. There's land out there sitting there vacant that developers have been willing to give.
So I just asked for the slide to be backed up once. And speaking particularly to neighborhood parks at 21%, if the city is only crediting back 21% of the fee because a community park is being built with the development and it's a turnkey developer built park, it creates the big issue of, well, your minimum is a 6-acre park and you just showed how that's, I don't know, $1.5 million or some odd dollars per acre when you add in soft costs and everything else. And you get these huge costs and then the credit only adds up to this. And there's a multi-million-dollar potential gap between the developer's cost and the credit that he can get back. And, and that's where you're saying, well, we didn't limit it to this 21 or 33% or whatever before. We said, hey, let's just go get a park done and forget how the money gets proportioned up within parks. Let's just credit the whole thing back. And a park got done and it's a nice one, to that point.
It's impossible with these efforts to capture every hypothetical. You're going to get all kinds of developments and we don't want to tie anybody into anything. But when we intake applications, when we meet with Aaron's group, we are evaluating what the mitigation is. We've plugged the diff into a calculator that spits out a number, and then we have to use our best judgment. If you're close to what we require, if you have to mitigate for 5 acres, as part of your development, and we're likely to try to engage with you on agreeing to entering into a park agreement to provide a 6-acre park. And then we can talk about how we make up the difference for that additional acre. But again, if you're approaching us with 30 homes, it's unlikely that we're going to obligate your development to provide an acre.
And I'm not suggesting 30 homes, and I appreciate the distinction. Since we're on parks, I have one other comment to make. As you all know, I've been heavily involved in the Play for All Park for 11 years. I'm the one that came up with the idea. I'm the one that pushed it through. The Play for All Park doesn't meet any city standard for parks. It's not big enough for a neighborhood park. It's not big enough for a community park. But do you know the state of California considers it a regional park? And because we were qualified as a regional park, we were able to get a $1.7 million grant from the state of California, one of only 13 that were granted in the entire state under Prop 68. So when I hear that we are only going to build 6-acre parks, and yet the most popular park, it's a 4.9 on Google if you haven't looked, which I've never seen a park anything over 4.5. We have a 4.9 park. It's right now only about 3.5 acres. And if you're going to hold our park standard to 6, we're not going to do anything less than that. We're cutting out a whole lot of potential for parks in neighborhoods. I used an example in a letter. I don't know who I've sent it all to. I think probably you, where a 100 unit development has to have 3 or 4 acres. 3 or 4 acres is a fantastic park. I know it. I built it. But under the city's policies, nope, no credit. That's frustrating. You could have builders building parks like crazy if they could get credit for it. And if we're saying no, 3-acre park is not good enough, we're not going to let you get credit for it. And you have to have an HOA, which HOA in our development business is, I don't know how much you know about HOAs, but they are legal messes. You know, I've been sued as an engineer in my 42 years of owning Philippi Engineering 6 times. Guess how many were HOA projects? 6. So it happens so often. No developer wants to have an HOA as part of their development. That's ridiculous. They wouldn't want to do it. So we want parks. I want parks. Let's do some 3-acre parks. We can do fabulous 3-acre parks. That's just something that has to change. If we're going to make the changes the city wants, if we want the vision of more parks in this community, if we want kids to be able to play within 2 blocks of their home, then we need to do something different than what we have right now.
I think that that's a completely separate topic that I'm happy to sort of elaborate on, but we start to get into the weeds about it. But so my concern would be that every future development would want to provide a 2-acre park. And this is kind of the area where that starts to tax existing residents, where the park categories have a very specific use. So community parks are intended to have, programs like Little League participate in games. And then the neighborhood parks act more as access to nature close to home, but they oftentimes also act as practice fields. So the Little League fields don't necessarily all go centennial to practice, but rather they'll meet at one of the neighborhood parks to practice. And so when we start having a discussion about getting these smaller parks, where that starts to tax the existing residents is that by not meeting the level of service and the standards that are listed in the PRMP, it impacts the existing residents. So now all of a sudden the parks that are compliant in the city of Vacaville are intaking all of the influx from the new development that is coming in. That is my concern. That's more apparent when you start talking about facilities. We've got one pool, right? It's not like we're looking at addresses or zip codes to say, hey, you're part of this development, the developer lowered the fee, they didn't pay into expanding the pool, and so you can't participate in the pool. That's not going to happen. We're going to intake everyone's application, we're going to get them in the programming, and where that taxes the existing residents is that now all of a sudden there's a longer waiting list, right? So that's my fear, is that I agree with you. I think that small parks are an option, but they can't be the only option. There still needs to be a variety and a diversity that would allow for us to continue with the programming that we have. And if we don't do that, I see that as, again, a tax on existing residents. So that's my take on it. Beyond that, I am willing to have a discussion, but I do feel like it's a separate discussion that would probably go to council.
And I appreciate that separate discussion needs to be had. I've heard for the entire 11 years I did the Play for All Park, that this city wanted me to do 2 soccer fields and a baseball diamond. That was what they wanted. They didn't want the Play for All Park. I heard that over and over again. So I understand that issue very, very well. I do think we need to, and I would encourage the council, I would encourage staff to please rethink this. You can master plan your neighborhood parks to get those fields that you need, but also allow the developers to put the 1, the 2, the 3 acre parks, those facilities that really make a neighborhood a neighborhood. My daughter lives in a Newport Beach subdivision. There's a pool clubhouse facility that is there. It's 2 acres. It's fantastic. It doesn't meet any of the city's standards. There are other standards we need to talk about, and those, again, Play for All Park did not meet almost any city park standard. And all right, I'm done.
I
got it.
It's great comments. I appreciate it. Chris, online, you've got some questions?
Yeah, I'm just thinking this, you have $27,000 per unit. And I gotta believe something's broken in here. You showed a table where it had Roseville at 9 acres per 1,000, 9 acres of park per 1,000 residents. And their park fee is about $20,000 less per single family unit than what you're proposing. And how is it that a community like Roseville can provide 9 acres per 1,000 and do it for 20,000 less than Backward? I really think that there needs to be maybe some outreach to some other communities that have park fees that are more in line, and communities that more importantly have delivered on park development. And to reiterate Tom's comment, there is not equity in parks negotiations from one project to another. And so putting some guardrails on how negotiations are expected would be extremely helpful, because no single project repeats what another one has done. And that just provides uncertainty. Thank you.
If I can, Chris, with you, what we're trying to do are specialty parks, some of us. And I understand, I mean, I coached baseball, and we have to have these kind of parks, and I understand that. But at the same time, there are certain areas and locations that for marketing purposes and for living, it's a community. And if we want to have a pickleball park that is primarily pickleball, you don't need to have 5, 6, 7 acres of pickleball. I mean, Visitors knows the numbers on what it takes. And if you want to have another specialty park, which would be a combination of bocce ball and horseshoes, where you can have clubs that which they have that come from all over the state of California and beyond to compete. But to have a nice one and a good one, you don't have to have 5, 6, 7 acres. And we can lay out numbers for that. So, and local people can use them, and people will drive to them. But local people will drive to them if they're well done. Same as the tennis courts. I've got tennis courts in Folsom that you go down there and they're full all the time and they're playing tennis. And they're primarily tennis courts. That's what they are. They have some walking trails that go around them and some barbecues, but they're primarily just tennis. So they're specialty parks. And so I'd really like to sit down and really talk to everybody, maybe outside the meeting, where we can really have a one-on-one conversation and see what we can do about some of these specialty parks, because I heard the council saying, yeah, that they wanted you and us and everybody to look into those. So I'd really like to do that sort of on a more private communication. So I'll just leave it at that. Maybe we can set up a meeting and discuss what can be done to try and meet both sides of this. Not everything is soccer and baseball. I'm done.
Thank you, Rich. Are there any other questions? Move to the next slide.
Well, no, I was gonna say, can you click back? I do want to just visit. We talked a lot about actual park spaces, but if you look at the list, the facilities is actually the biggest part of the fee. I think a slide or two before you have the list of rec facilities. And kind of that 30% breakout. Yeah. So and I think you said, is it 14 in total
14.
projects?
Yes.
So this really increased from 2022 to 25. I guess my question is what was the criteria? How do we decide to add, I don't know, what is it? 8, 7, 9? I can't count that many. My eyes are getting old on me here. Nine new ones. What was the criteria? What determines, hey, we're doubling the list or whatnot, I guess now?
So again, I came onto the city in 2021, so I wasn't here. I think I caught the tail end of the 2022 update. I did attend that council meeting, but in reviewing the Park and Rec Master Plan, which was adopted in 2021, so these were concurrent efforts updating the diff and finalizing the Park and Rec Master Plan. Again, that's kind of the guiding document for our department. And one of the things that I was able to communicate to Gwen as part of this particular update is that the way that we function as a department, we've got one facility that operates gymnastics. So if we're talking about seismically retrofitting or bringing it up to accessibility code, that is going to serve not only existing population, but the future population. If we had multiple sites where we were offering the same programming, then I could see an argument being made for perhaps the developers are tasked with paying for, providing that service for their part of town, but we don't function that way. Our individual facilities are serving everybody. And so 70% of the obligation goes to the existing residents, while 30% should go to the future residents that will be served by this facility.
Sure.
And those are captured in the Park and Rec Master Plan, which was adopted by the council.
So all of the new ones, and I don't know, I really don't know. Some of these are existing facilities, most of them. Are these all rehab projects or some of these actual new?
Their expansions or the consultant had looked into how we can expand services within existing facilities. So all of the ones that were captured in 22 were only the brand new facilities, whereas these other ones are, or we're operating individual programming that is at an existing site.
Got it. And through the Park and Rec Master Plan, these are now added in presumably because that plan was developed in
They were all
21 or 20.
included in the 2021.
They were?
But not in the fee.
Not in the
in
fee.
And when I took over.
Well, yeah, that plan was probably being done at
Yeah.
the same time. There was probably some overlap in timing there, right? Gotcha. I mean, I just, I look at the numbers and going from 2022 to 2025, that looks, like a really huge increase just in those facilities.
Let me ask a question here. And once again, the goal is to build these workforce housings, and yet at the same time, keep revenue coming into the city and build these parks. And any of them that you want to build and redo, I think they need to be done. And I know it takes the big fees to do it, but if it kills the building, then there's no fees coming into the city and nothing is being done. And I'd like to reach out to Brian. And Brian, can we get Parks to sit in on the meeting that we're trying to figure out how to do to where Parks to get what they want, we get what we want, but we got to look at these fees and make certain that the goal does not get lost. If the goal gets lost, then you have no building. And you have no fees, and none of this gets done. And you're on the edge of that, if I can say that.
Thanks, Rich. Vince, to your point, in terms of that timing, that overlap between the master plan and the DIP, the 22-7. Those projects, all 14 are included in the Parks and Rec master plan. One of the options that staff, we're making these notes, the options that staff approach city council with their consideration is to phase out those projects like blocks over the next, within the DIF cycle. So we're at 5 currently. Maybe what we do in this is all hypothetical. Council obviously weigh in. Maybe you go 8 in this the first year. If council decides to move forward, then the following year you decrease the number up until you finally get to 14. But those are all options to kind of lean into it instead of hitting a hockey stick. Because I understand that it's certainly an increase going from 5 to 14. No doubt there's an impact there.
Yeah. And then I'm just going to assume none of the projects have come off since 3 years ago. There's nothing that's completed to come off of this rec list.
Because they're iterated in Parks and Rec master plan. There's not many amendments to that, these projects. That makes sense?
Yeah.
We'll get back to where we were at. Oh, wrap slide. This is it. This is it.
This is that, this.
We're done.
Yeah.
So, last slide, just again, another, housekeeping slide as, Debbie brings that up. We have the August 12th, council meeting. That'll be again, diff 102 presentations, just information.
Well, I had a comment, if you're getting into bookkeeping of what's happening at the meeting,
I'll come back. You have a question?
I have a question on the overall fee structure.
Okay. Let me just wrap this up. So, August 12th, council meeting, diff 102, in informational item. That'll wrap up the informational series, and then we'll, the following one, again, whether that's September or October, we'll get into the policy discussion. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the mayor is fully committed to providing developers additional time at the podium. So, you know where the resources are at. You've got my email, as well as Aaron's. If there are any questions, please don't hesitate. Reach out to us. We're happy to have that conversation. And Rich, we're gonna again hold you. It sounds like we're getting close on setting up that meeting where I know staff over here is very interested in seeing those numbers and getting some enlightenment on that topic from your perspective. So I appreciate you providing that opportunity for us. And then I'll throw it to Tom.
So I have a couple of overall points.
Okay.
The overall proposed fee increase based on your chart is 64% fee increase. So by the way, transportation is actually below. It's 57%. Unfortunately, parks is 141. The one question I've had all along, and I don't think it's happened, is how will the fee increase affect building moving forward? So I'll use a very ridiculous hypothetical, but it's illustrative of my point. So why mess around with $92,000 for a building permit? Let's just make it $1 million for a building permit. How many homes would we have built if we had $1 million building permit fee? Well, the answer is obviously 0. And then so the question then is, all the departments have based their fee increases on a certain number of projects that need to be built to match a certain number of homes that are going to be built. Has there been any correlation analysis between what the fee is proposed to be and actually how many homes would be built? I can tell you that in 1992, when I was part of these same kind of meetings, in 1992, the city basically, and I don't remember the exact numbers, tripled the building permit fee. I still remember the day I paid my building permit fee. I built a custom home here in Vacaville in 1986. It was $8,600. I remember writing the check because $8,600 was like my entire life savings, $8,600. My home has matched inflation plus or minus. So my home is about 3 times what I built it for in 1986, which matches inflation since 1986 to 2025. And I looked at it under the Bureau of Labor and Management Statistics, whatever it is. But this fee is 1,000% over a 1986 fee. And then the question then is, if you're raising the fees 64%, I've talked to a number of my builder clients, you're not going to get any homes. You might as well make it $1 million. Because if it's going to be raised nearly double, who's going to build? And especially homes for young families, which is what brought me to Vacaville. When we moved to Vacaville in 1980, we bought a 1,320 square foot home. I looked in the last year, we have not built one under 1,500, not one. No families can come here. The vitality of a community is when families come, because that's what generates the enthusiasm, the going out for PTA and the getting involved in the schools and all those things, which we did. But we're discouraging that now. The only homes, and it all changed in 1992. It all changed. We had a big increase in homes in 88 and 89. It was crazy. I was here. And we tripled the fees. We put in a planned growth ordinance and we whacked development like crazy. We went from 2,500 homes permits in 1989 to less than 400 in 1993. And you can double check those numbers. I'm talking off the top of my head. I may be off on some of those numbers, but that's generally what's happened. All through the 90s, early 2000s, all we've built is big homes in Vacaville. So I used the term in the first meeting of war on housing. I was a little off. It was a war on small homes. It's a war on families, in my opinion, because we increased our fees so dramatically that the only homes that could move forward are the big homes, 2,500 square feet and up. Rich Alexander continually asks what the goal is. We hear our council members say, we want workforce housing. And you know what? We want to give it. I want all forms of housing. I want small homes. I want big homes. I want for seniors. I want everybody to have a home. You're in Vacaville. That's why I live here. That's why I invested everything I have here. But when we raise fees like this and don't look at what the impact is going to be on the number of permits, we're selling ourselves short. I truly believe what's going to happen if a 64% fee increase goes into effect, those projects that can move forward right now and pull permits before this is enacted will do it. You'll see a big jump in fees or in permits. And then you'll see nothing until somebody says, can we build? Well, Lagoon Valley might go forward. They got some nice $1 million homes. They might be able to absorb this fee, honestly. But you're not going to get any 1,200 square foot homes, 1,500 square foot homes. That's just not going to happen, which the council says they want. So I really hope this doesn't get implemented, but I don't know what else. I'm just one guy. Huh?
You guys had some good conversations. The way that we're approaching this, I hope we demonstrated today, just in the tip, I wouldn't say a 39, almost a $40 million drop is a drop.
I appreciate it. Listen, you're the first guy that's ever listened to my arguments about those 4 projects. Thank you for that.
Well, then let me finish this out.
Yeah.
This is an order of progress. We're not done. Now we're working with the developers. We're working with you. when Rich, came to my office last Thursday, and offered to, because I would like to see how the books are, the figures and the calculations are made. I would like to understand that. I think that's worthy information for staff to be able to understand from your perspective. We're not done. We're gonna get to the policy discussion. And these things, which I mentioned at the very outset, whether it's staff packaged up in terms of projects coming off, being temporarily paused, modified, council is going to be presented. I'm promising you, council is going to be presented with those options, which will impact those fees, within each dip category and then overall. We're on the same page. No one on this, I am not. I'll put it on me. Just Amo was saying, he's gonna. This is a public meeting, and the record is the record. You can blame me. Well, the buck stops right here. I am telling you, we are going to make sure that council sees that information, sees those comparisons in terms of the total fees, the county fees, the city fees, the school district fees. I'm going to make sure that our council understands that so that they can make that determination as to what's best. I'm going to provide that to leadership. They're gonna ultimately make the decision. And that's at a policy level. So when we get to that policy discussion, those kind of back and forth are gonna happen. And that's where me reaching out to the mayor this morning and saying, hey, I would really appreciate, if the developers are provided some additional time. They've been asking for it. He immediately shot back, absolutely. That dialogue is going to be critical. No one wants to see business stop. It does nobody any good. We're going to be there. We're going to have that, honest, sincere dialogue. So you're getting that commitment from me, Tom.
And I appreciate that. I've been on 2.5 weeks hiking through the Alps, Swiss Alps, and I had a great time. And I'm not excited to come back and talk about fees. So having said that, again, Brian, 64%, it's just, we have to rethink our standards, what we want, we don't want, what we accept. Because I can just tell you, I've done this for a total of 48 years. Home builders won't accept it. They'll just, and the way they won't accept it, they'll just walk away. They've already called me and told me that. I've had builders from the Bay Area say, I'm hearing crazy stories about Vacaville doubling their fees. I said, well, it's probably not gonna be double, but they're going up. Well, good.
I want you to relay to them on my behalf what I've just iterated to you. I also let them know that, we've reduced the TIF just in this last month in working with Vance and with you and with Rich, almost $40 million. So if we're not providing a demonstrated example of moving toward, some a balance with you, I don't know what else to say. And also, just to cap off again, we're still at this. We're standard process. Council is going to be provided this kind of information during that policy discussion, and it will ultimately affect those fees.
And I just want to add on to what Brian and Nemo and the team has been working on. I'm here only for 8 days. So I'm still getting, all the projects, all the input from everybody. I had a brief conversation with Vince and Rich yesterday. And after that, I followed up with internal staff. We're going to have a meeting with Rich. We're willing to listen to your ideas. As Brian mentioned, we also discussed this morning. Is there a way we can look at phasing some of these parks facilities? So we're not adding all 14 at the same time. And we're saying, okay, let's go from 5 to 8 to 11 to 14. That may help reduce some of these costs. As part of the development agreement, we can start looking at what are the reimbursements we can do. So there are ways we can address this. We want it to be a collaborative effort and do the best that's, moving forward Vacaville in the right direction for our community. We absolutely want all kinds of housing. We also need to consider, these fees Looking at the history, were first established in 1992. The first time ever the diff update was done in 2019. And in 2022, basically, we just copy pasted 2019 and barely made any changes, didn't do a deep analysis. And so now we're fixing 8-9 years worth of, the fee update basically has not happened since 2019. So again, we're willing to listen, and any other ideas, we're willing to spend more time and then come up with a solution that works for both parties.
And I have two very quick questions. Number one, I assume the slideshow will be produced somewhere online available afterwards, I think, because I do want to take a look at a couple of those again, yeah. The second question specific to the parks, rec facilities, and the 5 and the 9 new is, we see those costs. Do you guys have some semblance of the importance, and if the big $50 million project really isn't that important, and maybe that's in your mind, a project 12, 13, 14 that can be shoved off and save quite a bit here and now, and maybe a priority list with those costs next to it. It might be helpful to look, it might be helpful for a council member deciding someday on these things and seeing, oh, that one's actually big and can wait kind of thing. That might be helpful. Or maybe it's front loaded with the big expensive projects, but at least we'll know going into it, what's the city's real priority on the list of 14 and how are those weighted?
So a great point. Yes.
Sure, and council actually prioritized a handful of those, the 5 or 10 of them, not that many years ago.
Oh.
So we do have a prioritized list.
And then I guess, Brian, I know, with TIF projects, you have 2 or 3 priorities that get heavily funded and the others not so much. Is it the same way with the rec facilities list? Would it, anyone?
Typically, the prioritization relative to the TIF is developers are pushing some of it in terms of,
Yeah.
We're out there trying to get ahead of on those projects that provide you the infrastructure allowing you to attach for subdivisions and other projects too. So we look at the general plan, we look at we're looking at the traffic demand model, we're looking at STA in terms of helping us forecast the county, but
Right, I'm saying on the rec list, I assume there's 1 or 2 priority and most of the funding goes to those and the others are just kind of, well.
I can tell you right now, on the TIF side of it, Bounce Valley, we're pouring everything we can into that because that one needs to get done. There's some safety elements related to that particular roadway that we're trying to advance. But to your point, I think the prioritization is another angle, provides another, basis for understanding for council to be able to weigh in, as to what those ultimate considerations are. And so, good point. We've talked.
It'd just be a great tool. We're going to wean some of them off, for lack of a better term, to know which ones. Yeah. Okay.
One last point, maybe we need to get other departments in here, because if you look at this as a percentage basis, police is 85% increase, fire 125% increase, general facilities 116%. Belts, open space 126. Well, maybe that's parks, I don't know. Transportation, you're actually down below the average, so thank you for that. Parks and rec 141, drainage 84. The interesting thing is why sewer and water were only 20% each.
So,
only, that's still high, but fantastic.
Driven by a consultant, so that come right out of Justin's consultant group. So those.
So can we get that consultant to look at these other departments?
So let me address real quick. Let me address fire and PD, on those particular items. Unlike, transportation projects or parks and recs projects, construction projects, a lot of what we're talking about in those particular areas are vests and police cars and, the other SWAT related, firearms, and products. And so you're just going out, you're getting those costs and then going through the process of escalating those, per the calculation. So
So police and fire actually provided us. What I did for them was I provided them the list for 2022. I said, can you provide me what the cost is for, some sort of XYZ truck or fire apparatus, et cetera. And they provided me with the cost. Police and fire totally independently I can tell you for drainage, what we did is I went out to a consultant and said, here's our drainage facilities that we had in 2022. You could cost update them for me because I need them, they were done, whatever they were done, probably 2019. I need them in current dollars.
Through a third-party consultant.
Third-party consultant.
If you brought up drainage, and I really, this isn't the meeting to discuss it, but you know, the drainage under California drainage law has changed dramatically. We're supposed to put in drainage and detention facilities so that you folks don't have to do more downstream. So, I mean, that's a whole, I know that's a long discussion.
And it's on the website. It's based upon particular facilities, based upon the drainage study of what's needed. And then,
But can I just ask on the detention specifically,
It's-
if the developer's
it's not-
providing,
yeah, it doesn't include any developer providing detention. And there's a east of Leisure Town Road fee and a west of Leisure Town Road. The east of Leisure Town Road fee is very minimal. The west of Leisure Town Road is more expensive.
yeah, but what I was getting at is, you know, if the developer is providing their own drainage and doing all of that, there's still fee creditable against the development.
For the detention.
For detention
Yeah.
specifically, yes. Right, you go, developer builds the pond, the outfall, the environmental permitting into the blah, 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 blah. Goes away effectively, they're
So
credited.
there's no cost associated. So like you built for, was it Robert's Brighton Landing? Brighton Landing. You know,
Sure.
Brighton Landing, and Roberts Ranch shared the costs of that and basically mitigated the impact of those two developments.
Correct.
That is not-
Southtown built the one on the east.
And that is not in the
Yep.
program.
Yep, no,
That's not
that's a good point. right
And
there.
that the point is, east of Leisure Town Road, because they have to put in all the detention, very minimal fee versus west of Leisure Town Road.
Okay, so the fee does not include detention because the assumption is the developer's already
You're
providing
required
it.
to mitigate your own impacts, and it's not citywide
So,
impacts.
Okay, so maybe I can cut you off. What does the fee cover then if it's not for detention?
There are specific detentions that we have at various locations. Detention is not my area of expertise. I have to pull out the report and then we can sit down and go through it. The report's online. And it's the same report of what was needed back in
The
2020.
point was not to talk about individuals like this, but the point is that police and fire and general facilities are all in the 100% increase range.
General facilities went out to a architecture
You
firm
know,
and
you know,
basically
I don't.
so,
we independently went out to different people.
to your point though, Tom, you know, on some of these, again, going like the police and fire, their products. We have no control, the city of Akron has no control on, you know, what a firearm costs. And so police is reporting, you know, what the firearm costs. That's the part of the fee. So let's end on a happy note here. Making progress.
Yep.
We're gonna, is there any other questions online?
Yeah, actually one question. This is Joey Lujan. I'm with DPFG Consultant working on behalf of some of the members of the developer group. Really more of a high level question. We understand the city is using about 14,000 units in its Nexus evaluation, which appears to conflict with the amount shown in the housing element. Just curious how this is being reconciled. I don't know who this is question specifically for, but I was just curious the source of the difference on that unit assumption.
So I can't respond to the housing element because I'm an engineer and I know really nothing about the housing element. What I can tell you is that when we started the diff in 2016, basically we had several different land use scenarios where we ended up with the land use scenarios of what amount of development was actually going to be constructed. It was the build out of the city minus the northeast area. It includes some development for east of Leisure Town Road, but it doesn't include all of the development that is currently proposed east of Leisure Town Road because that was urban reserve and then there was just an estimate of what would be included. I'm not sure what's in the housing element. And our time frame was approximately like a 2050 timeframe when we thought housing would be built out. And I'm assuming the housing element probably has a different time frame.
It does, but Joey, if you wanna, we can actually take that question down. And if Typheon has anything he wants to say, he can say that, or we can get back to you on that. The housing element is a process through which the city of Vacaville demonstrates to the state of California that we're planning an adequate number of below market rate units and market rate units to serve the 9-county Bay Area region. It has a different planning timeframe. It's 8 years basically now, thank goodness, 4 to 8. But it's also, it's guided by different things, and it's also looking at things through the state's lens. So I don't believe that it's a different planning exercise. But anyway, we can get into that a little bit more if that would help, because we want to be clear on this.
This is Greg Brunn. I can shed a little bit of light. The housing element excludes the A&P Children's property and the Race and Chen property. And those two, based on our applications, those two projects will add an additional 2,021 to 2,046 units, which would bring that number up to 14,210 to 14,235. So I think that's where it's missing.
But when did state that we did not include this housing unit assumptions for the
This is-
East growth area?
So
Yeah.
This is in the Nexus study, and it's showing that the East Elizatown Road specific plan doesn't include. It includes the Donaldson Ramos, but it doesn't include the Race and Chen or the A&P Children's property.
So it includes some of it. It doesn't include all of the other development either.
Correct.
So-
It only includes one of the three property owners.
And that is actually why the East Elizatown developers are funding a development impact fee study specific to that development area. That is not captured in the citywide program entirely.
So it didn't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but that's what I know.
Thanks, Greg.
So yeah, any information you can provide, can get back to me, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Online?
I just had a question. How many homes are we projecting? What's the denominator in this?
The EDU equivalent, I believe, is about 20,600, but that's for traffic, and the EDU equivalent for traffic includes office and all this
Oh,
other stuff.
yeah.
It's totally, I can tell you.
I thought that's what they were getting at, was the residential was like 14,000 in the Nexus study, but it's not a time horizon, it's a build out area, which does not include Northeast and does not include a couple of the East Elizatown urban reserve pieces.
Correct.
And that's why there may be discrepancy.
And I just assumed this all along, but I might as well ask, like in the transportation, you are having some of the fee go to commercial and industrial and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I figured that, but
That industrial is hefty.
Okay,
well, for that matter, let's use 30,000 as the denominator.
It's gotta be somewhere based in reality.
I understand. So does.
okay, that concludes this update meeting number 4. I appreciate everybody's input. If you have any questions, we'll make sure that this slide deck gets published today, tomorrow, on the DIF update website. Don't hesitate again, as I mentioned earlier, to reach out to myself or Aaron. I'd be happy to have those conversations with you. So thank you for your time today. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.